Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to meet the New England Cottontail.
Oh, cool.
They're known for their fluffy white tail that looks like, a cotton ball when they run.
That's adorable.
It is, right?
We've got some great research here, and well, our mission today is to figure out why they're struggling and what people are doing to help them.
It's going to be fascinating. These rabbits are, a perfect example of how even small changes to their landscape can really impact them.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So let's imagine the northeastern U.S. a few centuries ago, tons of thick forests and
Not a
shrubland.
real rabbit paradise.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was their domain. Why were those habitats so important for them?
Well, they had tons of food, plants and all, but also they had great places to hide from predators.
Makes sense. But as always seems to happen, humans came along, cleared forests for farms and towns, and, well.
Urbanization.
Right. So what happened to all those landscapes? They got chopped up into smaller and smaller pieces. It's called habitat fragmentation. Imagine your home just kept shrinking and you had less and less food and shelter. It's tough. That's what these rabbits faced. In fact, habitat fragmentation has shrunk their range by like 80%.
80%. Wow. Okay, so we've got shrinking habitats, but there's more to the story, right? There's another rabbit in the area, the eastern cottontail. What's their role in all of this?
Well, imagine you've got this perfectly balanced ecosystem. Suddenly, a new roommate moves in who eats all your favorite snacks. That's kind of like the eastern cottontail. They were brought to New England in the early 1900s, and they're just more adaptable than our native cottontails.
Oh, so they can handle those human-modified landscapes a lot better.
Way better. So they started competing with the New England cottontail for, well, everything. Food, space, even mates.
It's like a classic invasive species problem.
Exactly. And the result is, well, not great. The New England cottontail population just crashed. By 2006, they were listed as federally endangered.
Endangered. That's serious. So how do we fix this? What can we do to help them bounce back?
That's where it gets really interesting. There are so many different strategies that are being used. One of the main ones is habitat restoration. It's literally rebuilding those dense, shrubby areas these rabbits love.
So it's like giving them back their home. That sounds promising. How effective is that in the long run?
It's definitely a great start. And, the New England cottontail is what we call a keystone species. It means that whether they're there or not really impacts the whole ecosystem.
Oh, I've heard that term. Can you explain that a little more? What makes them so important for everything else?
Okay, picture a huge web where each strand is a different species. The New England cottontail is like a really important strand in the middle. If it's removed, the whole web gets weaker.
Makes sense.
They're food for predators like hawks and foxes. They dig burrows that help the soil. They even help keep plant growth under control. So losing them would really hurt the whole ecosystem.
Wow, that's amazing how it's all connected. So by protecting this one rabbit, we're actually protecting a whole bunch of life. But restoring habitat isn't the only thing being done right. What else are conservationists doing?
You're right, that's just part of it. Another big challenge is managing the competition with those eastern cottontails.
Oh, right, those guys.
Yeah. So people are looking for ways to keep them from spreading too much and even create safe zones where only New England cottontails can live.
Like little bunny retreats.
Exactly. But eastern cottontails are persistent. It's a tough job. One initiative that seems really promising is the New England Cottontail Habitat Restoration Initiative. It's this huge team effort with all sorts of people working together. They're really focused on creating these things called habitat corridors.
Habitat corridors, what are those?
Well, remember how we talked about all those fragmented habitats?
Yeah, like little islands.
Yeah. Imagine connecting those islands with safe paths. That's what habitat corridors are, like bridges that let the rabbits move between those isolated areas.
So they're not trapped anymore, they can find mates, and it prevents inbreeding.
Right. You got it.
Mhm.
And that's super important for their survival. It helps them stay genetically diverse, which keeps them healthy and strong. And there's one more cool strategy: captive breeding and reintroduction programs.
I've heard about that. How's that working out?
It's amazing. Scientists are actually breeding these rabbits in controlled places so they can release them back into areas where they had disappeared. And get this, it's been really successful. There are places where these rabbits hadn't been seen in decades, and now they're back.
That's so encouraging. It sounds like they really have a chance. But there must still be challenges, right?
Of course. We can't forget about climate change. All those unpredictable weather patterns and changes in plant life could really impact their habitats. And then there's always those eastern cottontails, still competing for everything. It's a constant struggle.
So what would you say is the biggest hurdle for them right now?
Well, it's a mix of things. Climate change is a big one, like we said. But those eastern cottontails are still a problem. It's like they're fighting a war on two fronts.
I see what you mean. It sounds like conservationists really need to think on their feet, right? Always adapting to new challenges. But we haven't really talked about the ethical side of things, especially when we're dealing with an introduced species like the eastern cottontail.
You're right, that's really important. And it's complicated. There aren't any easy answers. You see, when you try to manage one species, it can affect others. We need to think about the long-term impacts and the trade-offs.
So how do they make those tough decisions? What helps them decide what to do?
One of the main things is making sure they prioritize native species and the whole ecosystem. So they have to think about the effects of any action they take. It's about finding that sweet spot between protecting biodiversity and not causing harm.
Sounds like walking a tightrope. Do you have any examples of how this works in real life?
Yeah, definitely. Like with the eastern cottontail. Some people say we should just get rid of them completely, but that's almost impossible and probably not a good idea anyway. Instead, they try to control their numbers so they don't hurt the New England cottontails too much, while still, letting them be part of the ecosystem.
So it's not about getting rid of one, but helping them both live together. How do we know if all this is working? What are the signs that things are getting better?
Well, that's a great question. Conservationists are always watching and checking things like how big the population is, if there's enough genetic diversity, and just how healthy the whole ecosystem is. They're looking for those little clues that show things are moving in the right direction.
It must take a lot of time and effort. It's really inspiring to see how much passion these researchers and conservationists have. It makes you realize that everyone can contribute.
Absolutely. It's not just about the scientists. We can all help. Donate to organizations, volunteer your time. You can even make your own backyard more wildlife friendly by planting native shrubs and trees.
That's a good point. We're all in this together. Looking ahead, what do you think the future holds for the New England Cottontail?
There are definitely still challenges, but I'm hopeful. All this dedication and creative thinking from the conservationists gives me a lot of hope. But their future, and the future of so many other species, depends on us. We have to protect biodiversity and understand that we're all connected.
Well said. Thinking about that, what about all the other species out there that are facing similar problems? What can we do to help them?
I love that you asked that. The New England Cottontail is just one example. It's a reminder of how important it is to protect all kinds of life. It shows that what we do matters.
So true. As we wrap up our deep dive into the New England Cottontail, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is that there's always hope. Even with all the challenges they're facing, the New England Cottontail has a real shot at bouncing back. And their story reminds us that we all have a part to play in saving biodiversity. Whether we support conservation groups, make changes in our own backyards, or just spread the word about how important this all is, we can make a difference.
Absolutely. The future of the New England Cottontail and so many other species depends on all of us. Let's keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep fighting for all the amazing creatures that share our planet.
That's perfect. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the New England Cottontail. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
Wow, we've learned so much about the New England Cottontail. We started with this cute rabbit with a cotton ball tail, and now we're talking about habitat loss and invasive species, and even ethics. It's incredible how it's all connected in nature.
It really is. The New England Cottontail is just one example. There are so many other species around the world facing these same challenges. It makes you realize how important it is to protect biodiversity, to understand and take action.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a lot about the problems, but what about solutions? What are some new and innovative things being done to help species like the New England Cottontail recover?
Well, one thing that's really exciting is how technology is being used in conservation. Scientists are using things like drones and satellite imagery to track animals and their habitats and even pinpoint areas that need to be restored.
It's like giving conservationists a superpower. They can see everything from above.
That's amazing, like something out of a movie, but it's real.
Yeah.
Are there any specific examples of how this technology is helping the New England Cottontail?
Definitely. Researchers are using drones with thermal cameras to find New England cottontail nests, which are really hard to spot otherwise. This helps them keep track of the population and make sure those baby bunnies have a good chance of survival. That's incredible. So technology is helping us understand and protect these rabbits in ways we couldn't even imagine before. What other cool tech advancements do you think are coming that could totally change how conservation works?
It's hard to say, right? There are so many possibilities. But even with all the technology in the world, we can't forget about people and communities. Conservation works best when everyone gets involved. Local communities, landowners, and even citizen scientists.
That's a great point. It's not just about scientists or policymakers, it's about all of us working together. What are some things regular people can do to get involved in conservation, even in their own backyards?
Oh, there's a lot you can do. You can plant native plants that provide food and shelter for wildlife. You can cut down on pesticide use. You can even just make a brush pile for small animals. And even something as simple as paying attention to the wildlife around you and reporting what you see to citizen science projects can make a real difference.
Those are all great ideas. It's good to know that even small actions can help. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of the New England Cottontail, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they come away feeling hopeful and with a deeper understanding of how everything is connected. The New England Cottontail's story is a powerful reminder that even when things are tough, there's always hope. And it shows that we all have a responsibility to protect the amazing diversity of life on our planet.
Well said. And to our listeners, remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep speaking up for the incredible creatures we share this world with. Until next time, happy exploring.